personal and just a lot of work-related things have taken me away from doing my podcast, and I do apologize for that. But we're back today, and I want to start off by saying thank you for listening to today's podcast. And I want to start off by reading a poem that a lot of people may know, some people may not know. And the poem goes, excuses are tools of incompetence. They build monuments of nothingness. Those who specialize in them are seldom to accomplish anything. I'm going to read it again. Excuses are the tool of incompetence. They build monuments of nothingness. And those who specialize in them are seldom to accomplish anything. The reason why I am starting off with this is when we talk about things that we want to get done, or things, because everybody knows the definition of insanity. If you don't, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Today's title of this podcast is Black People Are Still on the Slave Plantation. And I have been away for so long, so this is really just a culmination of a lot of things that have been going on with us since the last time I've done a podcast, and really since the last time I've done a podcast by myself. So I'm just going to talk today. There's no flow, it's just really off script, just me giving my opinions. And I hope that, you, at the end of this, that you understand where I'm coming from. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. And the reason why I decided to lead with the poem Excuses, because I told you guys back on whatever day the election day was, or before or after, why I am specifically not voting for Joe Biden. I said that, or I don't want to vote for Joe Biden, or Donald Trump for that matter. Because what I believe is that the black people are used as pawns, and we never get anything for ourselves when it comes to voting. And until we hold our votes hostage, we will never get anything accomplished that we need. The reason why I say that is because, as we know, there's a lot of successful African Americans. There are African Americans who, make a ton of money. They got the wife, they got the kids. They're living a normal, regular life. And so we believe that because the average African American is not living in poverty, but we still have African Americans still living in poverty, still getting killed by the police, still facing discrimination, and yet we only think that we believe that the only way that we can resolve these issues is by going out to vote, right? We gotta go vote. That's the only thing. Vote like our lives depended on it. And back during the election cycle, back in November, we had people who danced at the polls. We had people singing, dancing at the polls. We had people, frying up fish, doing all these different things to try to get us to vote. They had strippers from Magic City, I believe, having people. Let me bring this back. They had strippers who essentially created a video to get males to go out and vote. That was back in November. They shamed specifically a lot of black men into voting. They did that. And what happened was when Ice Cube came out and was against, it wasn't really even against, he was just saying that whoever wins, he wants them to have a plan specifically for African Americans. They called this man all types of coons, and he's a sellout, and this, that, and the third. So that happened in November. Today is April 26, 2021 at the day of this recording, right? What has Joe Biden done specifically for African Americans since he has been in office? And the reason why I use the excuses poem is because we make so many excuses for the Democratic Party. but we never hold them accountable. And when I say hold them accountable, we don't even hold the people accountable that look just specifically if you're African American, we do not hold them accountable whatsoever at all. We give them excuses, we make up excuses, we give them passes, we say that because here's the thing, if you ask the average black person, they'll say Joe Biden has done okay. You know why? Because he gave us $1,400 when he actually promised us $2,000. He did not give us $2,000. Donald Trump gave us $600 when he was in office, and the Congress did, and Joe Biden's administration gave us $1,400. Let's just go off the little things that Joe Biden has promised us since before to try to get us to vote him in. He's promised, the only thing that he's living on is a stimulus, but he didn't do that because he promised us $2,000. He also promised us that he would cancel student loans. He said he's come out and said he's not going to do that. He's yet to pass a bill, the Voters' Right Act that they're trying to get passed. They're not doing that. They haven't even brought it up for issue. He's not raised minimum wage. He's not even trying to fight for minimum wage. So essentially, what has Joe Biden really done for us? But we voted for this man back in November of last year. Now, let's keep it moving. As we all know, George Floyd happened, alright? But there has been several instances of black issues with the police. Now, my apologies. I don't know these people's names off bat, but there was an instance where a girl got killed in Ohio. Girl got shot 4 times by the police. There was another instance where in the same state of Minnesota, black man got killed. The police officer mistakenly, and I'm doing air quotes because this is a podcast, but mistakenly thought her gun was a taser and shot a black man, killing him. There was a situation in Tennessee. This happened like last week, where a white mother called the police and said the man had a gun. I don't know the full story about it, but I know that the black man got killed. He was a black student, got killed in a high school. And there was a situation in Virginia Beach where a military man got pulled over and got maced and got treated like a second-class citizen, and he was in the military. So where am I going with this? When the man in Minnesota got killed, Joe Biden's only concern was to protect buildings, not people. Not this is sad and we gotta do something about it. But he was more concerned about buildings. So where am I going, Tyrone? We are still on the plantation because we vote for a party who has not done anything for us since the 60s. Strategically for African Americans. And you ask, well, what about the other people or whatever, this and that? So the reason why I decided to really get out of my hiatus and do a podcast was the fact that Joe Biden and the Congress just passed a Asian hate crime bill because of COVID that's been going on for really a year since COVID really took off, right? They passed the bill to combat Asian hate crime, which I'm not saying I'm against that because I'm not. But how can you do something in a year, but a specific race in the country that they built has been systemically has experienced so much racism for over 400 years, but we've been told, well, let's wait. Oh, well, we're gonna get to you. But every 3.5 years, we hear the same excuses. Well, if you vote for me, this is gonna happen. But we get put in the back of the line. We have to come together, and we need to come and actually create our own party and have our own agendas, because it's clear that the Democrats don't care about us. And I was originally going to do a podcast, and I was going to say that, hey, black people are sheep. Why black people are sheep? Because we don't think for ourselves. I still believe that. I still do. But a lot of black people are taking the coronavirus vaccine. And, for me, I'm just not going to take it. But I believe it's the same thing when it comes to our political process and how we think. We have so much that could be done if we actually come together and strategize and focus about the agendas that we need as African American people. But we don't think, and we don't focus. We don't support anybody who's against the Democratic Party. We automatically assume that they're Republican. Even people who got common sense. So, prime example, George Bush, a couple days ago, came out and stated that he wrote in Condoleezza Rice, who's actually a black woman. That was his Secretary of State when he was in office. Condoleezza Rice. We have people like Jamel Hill basically saying that he voted for Trump, right? Because he did a write-in, but he didn't vote for Biden. Why do we feel the need that politicians are going to save us? Because we got to stop acting like Donald Trump was horrible to African Americans. He was horrible to certain people, but as a group, he did not do anything that publicly harmed African Americans. And I'm not saying that I like Trump, because I don't. But what I'm saying is, ask yourself, as you listen to this podcast, how much did your life change from when Biden was president, to when Trump was president, and you can even go back to when Obama was president? I can tell you right now, my life has been the same since Biden has been in office, and ironically, this doesn't go to be actually attributed to Trump, but my life actually took off while Trump was in office. But that's just because I got older, I became more wiser, so that doesn't get the credit. But what I'm saying is, I'm from Southwest Atlanta, Kelmerton Road, Zone 4 at Southwest Atlanta. I've lived in that neighborhood for over 10 years. I moved around 2005, but that's still my neighborhood. And I also lived in East Point. I stayed on Washington Road. Both sides of Washington Road, if you know the East Point area. Those neighborhoods have still stayed the same. Both of those areas have high poverty. Both of those areas have a lot of black homeowners over there. But nothing has changed. Our school systems still suck. Our property taxes are down. Because I think what we don't understand is we associate success as singular. So when we talk about success as singular, if I'm doing good, then everybody's doing good. But we have so much work to do, and we have to, in order for us to start the process of working to fix our issues, we have to leave the Democratic Party alone, aka get off the plantation. Because if we do that, then we can actually have a say. Because let's just talk about political power. Black people have none. We have no political party. We're very selfish. We're very selfless. But we need to be more selfish in our intentions. So think about this. Every major city has their own Chinatown. Every major city has a Jewish town. Every city, and I myself recently stayed in a neighborhood like this, have their own Hispanic area. They don't discriminate against African Americans. Some do, and we can talk about that another time. But most of them don't. But what they do is they're going to promote their Hispanic people over you. And it's not a hatred towards you, but they want to see their own people succeed. So when they go vote, they're looking for things I can't say the word, strategically help their own people or help their own party. Because it's a each one type of thing. So when you go in these Mexican neighborhoods, you see specifically Mexican grocery stores. You see specifically Mexican businesses. You see a lot of Mexican cash stores. You see a lot of Mexican restaurants. Some of these Mexican neighborhoods have their own bus transportation to get these people to and from certain destinations. You go in Jewish neighborhoods, you see they're specifically catering to the Jewish neighborhoods. Same thing. Like if you go, one of the most cultural diverse cities in the city of Atlanta is Doraville and Chamblee, Georgia. Doraville and Chamblee, Georgia. Chamblee has what it's called. It's not really real. It's not as big as if you go to New York City or Philadelphia or these other cities, Chinatowns. But they have their own They have their own churches. They have all their entities there. Why is it that African Americans do not have that? Yes, we have certain pockets, like we have the Sweet Auburn district. You have, I don't know about any other districts, but we don't have our own. The only entities that we have is our churches. But we don't have our own banks. We barely have our own grocery stores. We don't even support our own grocery stores. And why is that? Because we don't have any infrastructure to build off of. I was talking to one of my family members, my cousin, about the fact that we don't have any black middle class. It's either you have high middle class or you have working class. There's no such thing as a black middle class, and there's no such thing as a black middle class neighborhood. You're either gonna pay more for the neighborhood that you want to stay in, or you're gonna stay in the hood, and that's just honestly the real deal. You go to any major black city, Atlanta itself, there's no such thing as a black middle class. So what am I talking about, and what does this have to do with the Democrats, the Republicans, Biden, whatever, right? Let me bring it back home. The reason why this has so much to do with Biden is because we need reparations. And when I say reparations, now some people want money. I believe that money should be given. But we need reparations in a lot of other areas. We need educational reparations. We need real estate reparations. We need our own land. Because if we can build up our black middle class, real middle class, and actually have our own black neighborhoods, we will save the black race. And we will be able to compete, and we can actually have our own neighborhoods where you don't have to go to these other neighborhoods to go send your kids to. Why? And that is important, because in that case, you can cut down on police brutality, because then you can hire police officers that look just like you to patrol your neighborhood. Because what we don't understand is representation matters. And yes, we have came a long way since 1865, and specifically 1965 itself, when we were freed as slaves and when the Civil Rights Act was signed. I believe the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1965 or 1964. So we have came a long way. We have representation in the government. We have celebrities. We have rappers. We have entertainers. We have pilots. We have doctors. But what is that getting us? It's like we have an identity crisis, and I talked about that in my first podcast that I've done last year, which was the identity crisis issue. But it goes back to the same principle of we have an identity crisis, and we don't know who we really want to be. And we have lazy black people who, instead of wanting to do the work, they're going to try to assign themselves to the Democratic Party just to get crumbs, while other people or other groups get deals. Now, I was watching Dr. Umar Johnson today on the Breakfast Club, and he made some excellent points, and I was actually going to make these points myself. He didn't steal it. I'm not stealing his. So let's get that out the way. When Joe Biden first came into office, he immediately signed an executive order for transgender people, right? And then, like I said, the Asian solution happened. But there has been legislation for the George Floyd crime bill. It's not passed. There has been a legislation for the Emmett Till lynching bill that has not passed. I haven't even heard about the talks about the John Lewis voters' rights bill that has not even came onto the floor. Minimum wage has not happened. Increase where they was trying to increase it to $15. That has not happened. What are we getting from the Democratic Party? And what's the purpose of us still voting for a party who, let's just be honest, really don't give a fuck about black people? Because let's go back to last year. When George Floyd got killed, and Breonna Taylor got killed, and Ahmaud Arbery got killed, and Rayshard Brooks got killed, and the man in Wisconsin, I can't think of his name, Jacob Blake, got killed. What was the response of the Democratic Party, who, by the way, saved Joe Biden's ass when he was really going to stop his campaign? Because before I go into what he has done, let's talk about the effects that black people has had on Joe Biden's campaign. You had the Iowa caucus. He didn't win that. You had the New Hampshire primaries. He did not win that. If Joe Biden did not do well in South Carolina, he was going to drop out the race. But one of the problems that we have is we have these token niggas who don't do shit for black people, but they cape for fucking white people. Jim Clyburn, who was a big-time congressman in the state of South Carolina, came out and basically endorsed Joe Biden. And that's when Joe Biden campaign took off. He won South Carolina. He won all the states down south. And then that was effectively in the Bernie Sanders campaign. Now, mind you, Joe, last year when all the primaries and COVID happened and, this, that, and the third, like I said, George Floyd got killed. Ahmaud Arbery got killed. Jacob Blake got killed. Breonna Taylor got killed. Rayshard Brooks got killed. What was we're not going to talk about Joe Biden here. What was the Democratic Party's response? They got Kente Clough and took a knee as if there was Colin Kaepernick. Like that was supposed to solve the issues of police brutality. No bills were passed. No legislation was created. Nothing was tabled. You didn't hear anything about it. And this was a horrible year for police brutality and racism because Ahmaud Arbery, we got to know this. Ahmaud Arbery was not killed by the police, but the police had something to do with it because the police chief in Brunswick, Georgia, was not trying to bring charges against those three men. And if it was not for video, Ahmaud Arbery would be killed and nothing would have came out of it. But not only that, George Floyd would not have had a conviction. And I'm going to talk about the George Floyd case in a second. But getting back to Joe Biden, we saved this man's campaign. So, in a sense, what he's doing to us is a slap in the face. But once again, we make excuses. We make a lot of excuses. Now remember, excuses are the tool of incompetence. They build monuments of nothingness, and those who specialize in them are seldom to accomplish anything. You know why Joe Biden can feel like he do what he do? Because there's a such thing called a Black Caucus who does not do a damn thing for African Americans. The Black Caucus does a lot of shit for other people. They speak out again for the Hispanics. They speak out for the gays, the Asians. But what about us? We have a problem with, we have to get black politicians who are actually going to fight for black people. Now, another example of this would be Keisha Lance Bottoms, who I still think is a good mayor. But let's just be real. When Rayshard Brooks got killed in Atlanta, we started protesting. I myself went out there to protest. She was mad because not police buildings, but buildings were getting damaged. And she told us to take our ass home. Y'all need to take your ass home, right? Nothing about Rayshard Brooks. Nothing about we need to stop police brutality, stop all African American hate. Nothing. It was simply take your ass home. Y'all embarrassing me. And Killer Mike came up there, T.I. came up there, and it was a little a cool photo op. They said what they said, but no action came out of that. But when the 8 people got killed in Atlanta, Georgia, and they were Asian, predominantly Asian, she was so proactive. Let's stop Asian hate. We need to get stuff passed. Why can you not do that for young people? This is not to say that I hate Asian people, because no, that's not what I'm saying. Because I myself love all people, but I'm specifically in love with my African American people because I'm African American. This affects me because one of the issues that I have is police brutality is a main problem. That's just really the tip of the iceberg. have so many. Police brutality is not even the main issue that we deal with African Americans. But at the very least, we should be able to feel safe from the people that's supposed to protect us, not kill us. So at the end of the day, we have to get politicians who look like us to actually do stuff for us, but they're sorry. And most all of them are in the Democratic Party. So we have to get people that's going to do so we can actually hold the feet to the fire. And we also have to, because that's the only way you can hold your body accountable. Because if we can get the right people into office, we can make some real positive changes. We can, instead of having people who are just gonna, when you ask them about what you're gonna do specifically for African Americans, and they dance around the question, they say, well, we're gonna do something for all minorities. No, what are you gonna do specifically for African American people? And they don't answer the question. We can get them up out of there. Because one thing about it, if you look at other demographics, they get stuff done for their type of people. And the biggest criticism that I can give for us is the fact that we put Barack Obama on such a plateau and he didn't do anything for us either. So we have to move away from the Democratic Party and we must create our own political organization, because we make excuses for the Democrats. And what's the definition of insanity? We go and vote for them year after year with no repercussions, just no repercussions whatsoever. We don't hold them accountable, and we complain about the same thing every year. We want better jobs. We want this. We want that. But the only thing that they good for is money, because that's the problem. That's how they know that they can control black people. They know that if we get money, we'll shut the fuck up forever. We throw us like $500, oh, we'll shut up, because that's $500. Money controls everything. Fear and money. And to be honest, that's the issue. Because we're so afraid of having money or not having money that we don't think about the bigger picture. So when we get the stimulus check, well, how is getting a $1,400 stimulus check going to stop police brutality? How is a $1,400 stimulus check going to fix our school system? Because what's the biggest reasons why black people don't want to stay in black neighborhoods? The school systems, the crime, the infrastructure, and what could benefit them, right? So let's just take I'm gonna go because I'm on my computer, and I'm just gonna look up a random neighborhood. Let's look up Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, right? Let's look up the Pittsburgh neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you don't know, the Pittsburgh neighborhood is where old Turner Field was, and it's predominantly working class neighborhood. So we're gonna look up. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we're gonna do this. So I'm just gonna read their Wikipedia page, right? Pittsburgh is a neighborhood of Atlanta founded in 1883 as a black working class suburb. And the reason they named it is because it's pretty much there's a lot of industrial neighborhoods, right? And like I said, it's a working class neighborhood. The high school that you would go to if you stayed in the Pittsburgh neighborhood is Carver Hills or Carver High School, George Washington Carver High School, predominantly black high school. You have a bunch of churches over there. You have, a lot of liquor stores. But you know what Pittsburgh does not have? An actual grocery store that you can go to. An actual grocery store that you can go to. So I'm just going to read this little section about Pittsburgh, and it's going to give you a synopsis of what this area is. Because what I want to do is I want to paint a picture of why we need to stop supporting the Democrats. And I just picked a random neighborhood, right? So I'm going to read the history of Pittsburgh. And this comes from Wikipedia. I know a lot of people don't like Wikipedia, and that's fine, but just listen to me, okay? So this is coming from the Pitt. You can, if you want to read this, just type in Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and they have a Wikipedia page that come up. But anyway, here we go. In the first years of the 21st century, middle and upper income people started to move into the parts of Atlanta known as Pittsburgh. This brought hope to many in Pittsburgh, at least up until the real estate crash in 2008. Their neighborhood would attract investments, but not gentrification, and displace as new signs of a development. The Pittsburgh Civic League Apartments, a low-income housing project, was torn down and replaced with a large apartment complex. The Beltline forms the southern boundary of Pittsburgh, which will add parks and turn opportunities for new development. Right? So they're talking about gentrification. Starting in 2012, a resurgence in the Beltline adjacent neighborhoods of the Southwest Trail, skirting Adair Park, Summerhill, West End, Mechanicsville, and other neighborhoods have increased the likelihood of Pittsburgh having the same development, right? So, but this is another thing. However, the area of land known as Pittsburgh was the southern outskirts, which is based on the southern outskirts of the city of Atlanta, is a working class, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm reading just bits and pieces. But Pittsburgh is a working class black community. Pittsburgh was served by 4th Streetcar line, so that's not important. In spite of the challenges, early Pittsburgh boosted some of the world's most well-educated and self-sufficient residents, and it housed what became Clark Atlanta University. However, starting in the 1950s, it became possible for better-off black people to move into previously all-white neighborhoods. So the reason why I read what I started off with is because they're talking about gentrification, which what a lot of Democrats want to do. But before that, black people decided to leave these neighborhoods because they was able to have a little bit of money. So let me go back to it. Starting off in the 1960s, it became possible for better off black people to move into previously all-white areas. So many did, even as the white flight started. And if you don't know what the white flight is, was when basically white people moved from the cities to the suburbs. This trend was catalyzed by Pittsburgh also being deprived of public and private investments like many similar situated areas. This led to depreciation of home values in Pittsburgh and eventually to abandoned homes. So, what am I getting at? I read a lot and I probably threw you guys off. This is where I'm going from. The Democratic Party has been the primary dominant party of African Americans since the Southern strategy happened back in the 60s when Richard Nixon ran for president the first time against John F. Kennedy. The reason why it's important to understand that dynamic is because initially African Americans earned their right to have the Democratic vote because they had a reason. We basically turned a white supremacist president into a staunch civil rights supporter for the second, which was Lyndon B. Johnson after John F. Kennedy was killed. But since then, our neighborhoods are either in decay or turning into gentrification. My grandma on my dad's side, before she passed, lived in the neighborhood of West End, Atlanta, which is an historic African American community. It's right near the AUC, which houses Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, and I can even throw a clap because now Morris Brown has gained their accreditation. So they're back in the business. So all those schools are housed near the West End area. You had a lot of prominent African Americans live in this neighborhood, including a lot of doctors, homeowners, like a lot of people. But what really messed up this neighborhood was back during the 80s was the crack epidemic. So now those homes that were nice are now boarded up, and they're trying to gentrify these neighborhoods because that's what a lot of times that's what happens. I talked about this in one of my previous podcasts that when the projects got torn down, which will be like if you live in Atlanta, East Lake Meadows, Herndon Homes, Bankhead Courts, Bowen Homes, Perry Homes. And let's just talk about the ones that have been gentrified. Perry Homes has been gentrified. East Lake Meadows has been gentrified. They're doing work now on Herndon Homes. And they're gentrifying that. What's going to happen in what these Democrats are doing is effectively, you're saying that you're making the neighborhoods better, but what you're doing is now you are effectively taking the people that support and vote for you every 4 years or every 2 years faithfully and go so hard as to condemn people for not voting for you because they're so brainwashed into thinking that Democrats is right and Republicans is wrong, that these same people will now have to figure out where they're going to live. And these people have been living in these communities for decades. And now they're going to have to be forced to move because they can't afford to live in a neighborhood that we built. The Democrats, that's one of the things that the Democrats are pushing. Gentrification. And they do it with these black mayors who don't give a fuck about the people who they serve. I'm going to take it back, and I still think he was a great mayor. But if for those people who like this history, and you know about Atlanta, look up the Atlanta child murders that happened between 1979 and 1981, where approximately 30 kids were killed, and around 30 people got killed, 2 adults, around roughly 28 kids got killed. It was unsafe to be a kid in the city of Atlanta because people were getting killed left and right. And Maynard Jackson, who, if you ever come to Hartsfield Jackson, he's the Jackson part. He has the airport named after him. He has a high school named after him. He was a great mayor. But the issue that he had was he had a hard time connecting with the poor working class African Americans because they could not see himself in him. Because a lot of people like to say that Atlanta's a black Mecca, and it is, but it's not. The issue is when it comes to why we gotta stop supporting the black Democrats is because the Democrats only support a certain number of black people. And what am I saying? So if you are well off, you make a certain amount of money, you make $60,000 a year, yeah, you can support the black because you have the opportunity to say, hey, and a lot of people do this, whether you want to or not. A lot of times those people who make a good amount of money, they don't worry about the black community. They don't worry about the black middle class or the black working class because they themselves feel like they made it. And why should I care about people who's poor? But see, that's the issue that we have, and this goes back to the slave mentality. Because the difference, if you look at certain demographics, and I'm not saying that every black person who's wealthy does that, but there's a certain level of elitism that comes with having money. So they don't care about who's under them. They don't care. They're going to support the Democrats because they feel like they made it. But what people don't understand is that the working class is just as important as the regular black working class. Because at the end of the day, you still are going more than likely, if you're driving a Mercedes-Benz in a white neighborhood and you get pulled over, more than likely that police officer is going to treat you like you're black. But that's in the back of their mind because money has made them believe that they have basically equivocally gotten to a better financial stance and therefore they have gotten to a better social class that does not exist. And the issue is that until we get on code, we're going to have that issue because the reason why we need to I'm saying this and why I brought up the fact about Pittsburgh is when somebody from Pittsburgh makes it out of Pittsburgh, they never come back and invest into their community. They never take care of their community. And that is an issue because of the simple fact that our school systems don't get the same tax incentives that these schools up north do. And I was having a comment, and I think we need to go ahead and focus and pivot back to talking about why it's important for our school systems to get better and why we need to put the right people to make sure that our places do get better. And it starts with putting the right people in office on the local level and then on the state level, federal level. But the reason why we have to do that is because our school systems don't suck because the kids suck. Our school systems suck because of generational poverty, racism, and the school to prison pipeline. And you're asking if you're still listening, I appreciate it. Like, what does this have to do with Biden? You're going off on the tangent. So let me bring it all the way back. If we put the right people in the office, such as on a local level and then the state level and federal level, we can make small changes. Do you not know that the high school George Washington Carver, Carver High School in Atlanta is called New Schools of Carver. And the reason why it's called New Schools of Carver because they did something very innovative. And if we can take this model and we get the right people into the office of politics, we can make significant changes. The reason why it's called New Schools of Carver because they have different ways of going to this school. It's like going to college. They have a school for early college. They have a school for technology. They have a school for performing arts. They have a school for health and science. That's like going to college. And that's profound. And this is not in Alpharetta. This is not in Stockbridge. This is not in Cumming. This is in the straight hood of Southeast Atlanta, Zone 3. So, what am I getting at, Tyrone? If we get people to invest in our education and actually bring back trades into our schools, do you not understand the damage that we can do as African Americans? Because let's just face it, not everybody can go to college. Not everybody is meant for college. A lot of people are not meant for the military. But those are the two main things that are pushed onto us. And we take out these student loans that Joe Biden is not going to forgive, or we go to college. We go to the military. We don't have the mental state to go. We're not mentally ready to go. And we go and we have all these issues. But what is it getting us? Nothing. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if we put pressure on Joe Biden, these are some of the things that we can push for. Because black people, let's just keep it real. We don't look for handouts. We do not look for handouts. And I wanna come to this website called Great Schools because these schools are going to knock people because what the thing is, we got to go back to our own schools. And that's how we get off the plantation. Because the way we get off the plantation, the reason why I'm talking about Joe Biden is because we voted for him. But the reason why we voted for him because we still on the plantation of thinking that a white savior complex is going to save us, or even hell, a black savior complex is going to save us. But the reason why these schools that are in our neighborhood are not flourishing is because they don't ever take into the consideration that racism caused on us. What you're saying, Tyrone. So let me break it down. Think about it. A lot of these schools, these kids, they go to school hungry. They go to school worrying about where they're going to lay their head at night, whether they're going to get abused, whether they're going to get bullied, whether they're going to have something bad happen to them when they come home. A lot of times, the only time kids eat is when they go to school. In certain cases, that's the only time they don't have responsibilities because when they come home, they have to take care of their little brothers and sisters. They have to make sure they get off the bus. They have to worry about this, that, and the third. And they don't even have time to focus on, doing their schoolwork, homework, whatever. And it's no excuse. But it is, some kids do it and some kids don't. But we talk about the COVID, we talk about coronavirus, and we talk about things. How can you expect students to achieve highly when they're at home? And you expect them to go into these environments that are in these high poverty, working class neighborhoods and expect greatness from them. It's easy for somebody who go to school in Forsyth County or Hall County to succeed because more than likely their life is going to be better. When they go home, they don't have to worry about, dang, I gotta feed my brother, or I gotta go out and work a second job because I gotta help my mom pay the phone, like the light bill. But what the media does and what we do as African Americans, we let these things dictate why we send our kids to the schools, and we vote for the Democratic Party because we believe that they're going to be the change. So all in all, we must remove ourselves from the Democratic Party because they have shown that they do not care about us. And we need to put people in the office that are not going to make excuses, that are not going to pretend like all shucks and keep shucking and jiving, and actually put some policies in. And the reason why I brought up the school system, because that is one of the policies that have been neglected for so long. And we need to bring back trades in the school. But these are the things that we can fight for. But instead of fighting for that, or just saying, hey, stop killing us, police, they're passing bills for other races and other organizations. And we are the ones to suffer because they talk about the effect of the black vote, but they never talk about the effects after, like the causes of why they talk about the causes of why we vote for the Democrats, right? They talk about racism, they talk about opportunities, poverty, but they never talks about the effects from after we vote for them. But it's a cycle of it's a continuing cycle of, hey, they can come to our churches, they can hit our tambourines, they can come to the fish fry, and that's all they got to do to get our vote. Not have tangible things that can fix our problems that affect us every single day, just like the Pittsburgh neighborhood in Atlanta. Because even though it's a randomly selected neighborhood of Pittsburgh, the same thing goes on in East Point, Georgia, College Park, Georgia, Cateville, Union City. It goes on in Stone Mountain, South Decatur, Bankhead, The Bluffs, Vaughn City, Adamsville. All these neighborhoods that I'm listing, it's the same problem. And until we realize that we have to stop focusing and pretending like, and stop being lazy and just voting for the Democrats and thinking that it's going to save us, we're always going to be on the slave plantation. So that's going to be it for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. I will definitely try to be more active with podcasting as more stuff comes down. I didn't get a chance to touch on the George Floyd podcast today. I talked about it briefly, but I'm going to give my thoughts on that in the next podcast as I try to do that. But with that being said, my name is Tyrone. Thank you for listening to the podcast before I go. If you are listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this video. And also, if you want to, I'm growing a Facebook group. It's called We Are the Culture on Facebook. Please join. I'm looking to get that group to 100 and start daily discussions and actually talk about other things as well, not just politics on, that's dealing with the black culture. So my name is Tyrone Alexander. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it, and you have a wonderful, safe day. Thank you for listening.